I think she's a skinwalker. But anyway, so that's that goes in line with what we're talking about tonight. Ethan?
What are we talking about tonight?
Okay, so tonight we are talking about, or today, or this afternoon, we record at night whenever that works for us.
Yeah, and you're, as a listener, just because we're recording at night doesn't mean you have to listen at night. You can listen basically any time after 5 p.m. is okay with us. Like,
Yeah.
anytime between, like, 5 p.m., 11 p.m., midnight, like, that's okay.
Whenever. Yeah, and to quote the Truman Show, good morning, and if I don't see ya, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Absolutely.
How was that?
That was terrific. That was terrific. Love that
you.
movie. And we can work
Such
in
a
a,
great
a
movie.
Truman Show comment in every episode. That's our little
We
Easter
could.
egg.
Yeah. All right. So tonight, we're gonna finish up So we're gonna do part 2 of the top 5 most believable cryptids.
Right. And of course, out of the list of the top 5, we are obviously omitting gnomes since we discussed that those are basically confirmed at this point. So, we're talking about the most believable still within the scope of questioning.
Right. Right. So, the ones from the last episode that we did, if you didn't listen to it, go back and listen to part 1. But I covered Bigfoot/Sasquatch and the Loch Ness Monster, which I thought was hilarious because whenever I opened up my Discord chat, what was the first thing you saw, Ethan? What was the first thing I saw? Can you answer that question for me?
Oh no, I'm going to guess it was a massively erect censored whale part.
It definitely was.
I'm gonna hop into the Discord and just drop a bunch of blank messages because I ain't want to see that either.
You really are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally forgot about
Blow
that.
it up.
Yeah, but one of the great theories about the Loch Ness Monster is that the sightings are a giant hooked whale penis when they're floating on their back and it sticks up quite impressively out of the water and curves a little bit and you just see a silhouette. It looks a lot like a Loch Ness Monster. Because of that, we settled on that we're about 50-50 with Loch Ness, I think. I'm about 50% sure that there was a Loch Ness Monster at one time, and I'm now 100% sure that I do not want to see a whale in real life. Yeah, so 50% sure on the Loch Ness Monster. We're also about 49 to 51% sure on Bigfoot/Sasquatch. I'm leaning more toward Bigfoot at this point than Sasquatch. So again, about 51 for Bigfoot, 49 for Sasquatch. If we want to average those two, we're hitting about 50%. Which is right where you want to be with cryptids. You don't want to be too sure because then they're not really a cryptid anymore. And if you're not sure enough, then it just sounds a little bit silly, to be quite frank.
Right. Well, I mean, it's either a 50% chance it's real or a 50% chance that it's not.
Absolutely. Right. And we reached that conclusion quite mathematically. So if you're more of an analytical, logically based person, you might want to listen to the last episode.
There you go. All right, so to start off this episode, the first one that we're going to cover these 3: the Yeti/abominable snowman, Mothman, and the Chupacabra.
Ooh, a good old chup. I love hearing it.
Yeah. So to start off, we'll start with the Yeti, which is very similar to Bigfoot. But it is more so in like the Himalayan mountains.
Sure, like a regional kind of thing. Fun fact,
right?
My brother and I go by Bigfoot and Yeti because I'm a little paler than he is.
That's hilarious, actually, because you're blonde and he has dark brown hair.
Absolutely, and I mean, yeah, and we're both good doorway filling young gents.
Yeah. Hey, you remember that picture that I took of you on your bachelor weekend when you were like walking in the woods?
Yes.
We need to use that as our picture for these episodes.
I will use that as the episode thumbnail. That's really good.
Yes. Okay, we're totally doing it.
Yes.
Okay. So, the Yeti, also known as the Abominable Snowman, is a legendary creature said to inhabit the Himalayan mountains of Asia. It's often described as a large ape like creature standing upright and covered in shaggy fur. The term Yeti is derived from the Tibetan word Yete, which translates to rock bear or man bear.
Ooh, that makes
So,
sense. So, I mean, that region is, of course, rich in cryptid legends. So you have the abominable snowman, of course. They've got a few others. Everyone's familiar with Klimpaloon. Do you know Klimpaloon, Bailey?
no, what is that?
Yeah. So it is a magical old timey bathing suit that lives in the Himalayas, and it's like, what do they call that? Anthropomorphic? Like it's got like eyes and a face, but it's like an old timey like striped bathing suit. You know, like the curly mustachioed people from maybe the
The
early night,
20s,
yeah, the
the
20s or so.
1920s. Yeah.
Yeah, would wear, and it runs around those mountains. You can look it up if you don't believe me. I feel like you
You're making this
usually
up.
you always tell me that, and then you Google
I
it,
do.
and it's real. No, Klimpaloon, the magical old timey bathing suit that lives in the Himalayas.
That's from Phineas and Ferb.
Yeah, they covered it on Phineas and Ferb. If you think everything in Phineas and Ferb is fake, then wait till you go to Six Flags and find out roller coasters are real. You're in
Okay,
for a
Ethan,
surprise.
I'm going to fact check you. The exact origins of the Klimp Paloon are unknown, but he has been living in the Himalayas since 1883.
Correct. Pretty wild, huh?
Ethan, the shit that you come up with, I'm like, what?
I only
Anyway.
spout the truth. Okay.
Okay.
So Klimpaloon, another confirmed cryptid, as covered in Phineas and Ferb. But let's circle back to this abominable snowman.
Yeah, I think the whole 15 listeners that we have, I hope at least 2% of them get your joke.
What do you mean? We're really getting those numbers up there.
It's a very niche joke.
I mean, when we
see
talked
what I did
about some niche knowledge, you
Some
found
niche
the niche. That's for sure.
nonsense. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Reports of the Yeti have been circulating for centuries among the native peoples of the Himalayas, such as the Sherpa and the Tibetans. These accounts typically describe the creature as a powerful and elusive being, often associated with high altitude regions and remote snowy landscapes. In Tibetan folklore, the Yeti is often depicted as a mystical and elusive being that inhabits the remote and rugged terrain of the Himalayas. It is sometimes portrayed as a guardian spirit of the mountains or as a figure in local religious beliefs. According to an article on History Extra, the belief in the Yeti as a physical creature became established enough that when Alexander the Great stormed through the Indian subcontinent in 326 BC, he reportedly demanded to see one, only for the locals to refuse by claiming that it would not survive at low altitudes. Throughout the centuries, accounts continued until distinct types of Yeti had formed, and the legend became part of Buddhist mythology as the religion spread across the region.
Buddhist
that was
mythology.
interesting.
That's very interesting. I can't say as I've ever heard much like cryptid attribution to Buddhism. So learning something new
hadn't
every
either.
day.
Yeah. All right, so History Extra also says the Yeti remained mostly undisturbed, and many local beliefs stated that it would be an ill omen to see one until the 20th century, which was a fertile time for cryptozoology. 2 decades after the journalist Henry Newman popularized the term abominable snowman in 1921, 2 hikers claimed to have spotted 2 black specks moving across the Himalayan snow. Then Shipton's prints in 1951, helped by the conquest of Everest 2 years later, focused attention like never before on the region and the Yeti possibly hiding within. End quote.
So black specks. What were they? What are they saying that was? Like footprints popping up, or its beady little eyes, or something, or?
Nope, the black specks would have been like the Bigfoot / Yeti that they claim to have seen.
Oh, they just like it's so
like kind
far
of like
away.
moving that was just so far away. They just
Okay,
looked like
I
two black
gotcha.
specks.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's always an interesting place to start when the sightings are like, it's so far away that it's just little black specks. must be a Yeti.
Yeah.
But I get when you're up in the Himalayas, you're probably not expecting really to see anything moving.
Right.
And if there are things up there, you'd hope it's other people that on like a planned expedition or something like that. So I could see it being freaky.
Right. And I mean, nobody's really going to be out there unless they're a local. Because I mean, the Himalayas, like, that's Mount Everest.
Sure.
Basically.
So I did a quick Google search to try to find some images of a Yeti, and I was not disappointed. I think unlike Bigfoot, doesn't seem to be like a Patterson Gimlin caliber video recording, at least not that I
Right.
saw. But there's some interesting stuff out there. Unfortunately, most of it looks to be AI or pretty faked. But
Yeah.
I mean, if it's a little bit older, I could see a lot of people not maybe going up into the Himalayas with a functioning camera. So that might be it.
Yeah.
I still sent you maybe the most compelling piece of imagery that I saw regarding the Yeti, but again, there's just not a lot of media available.
Ethan.
Now, I keep looking at this one over and over again, and it seems more convincing.
I'm dead. Oh my fucking God, Ethan. All right. So, Eric Shipton photographed what appeared to be large footprints in the snow during an expedition to Mount Everest in 1951. These footprints fueled speculation and interest in the existence of the creature. Numerous expeditions have been launched in search of the Yeti, but concrete evidence of its existence has yet to be proven. Many scientists and skeptics regard the Yeti as a legend or a myth, attributing sightings to misidentifications of known animals such as bears or primates, or to cultural folklore, which I mentioned in the previous episode.
Sure.
And I think that's going to be true for, like, basically any cryptid. If there's no, like, solid evidence, it could be like, well, what if it was this and it was just moving really fast, and or like you just caught a glimpse of it, like, at the end, and it was just like a shadow or something.
Definitely.
Like you just didn't have time to process it.
Definitely. And I think the 50s is actually somewhat contemporary for a lot of cryptids. I know, like, the first Bigfoot sightings go back to the early 1900s, and 1920s being when it started really popping off. But as we went through the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, it continued to pick up steam. So it's interesting to see something that kind of, carried along through local legend and, mythologies in the area, and then wasn't really documented, let's just say scientifically for the sake of it, until the 50s. So that is interesting. It's more of a hip modern cryptid.
Yeah, it kind of is. We'll kind of touch base on that when I talk about the other two in the episode. For some reason, there seems to be a lot more attention placed on cryptids, like in the 60s, and I don't know if that has to do with, like, the UFO sightings. Maybe people are willing to open their minds a little bit more, or people are just talking about things more. So I was kind of thinking about that.
It could be. I also think we're going to see a recency bias towards maybe the 50s onward, because we're going to have people who are young enough to be coherent, but old enough to be back in my day. They were growing up in the 50s and the 60s. So those are the people kind of, raising their ale and telling what they seen out in the woods.
Exactly. Yep. All right. So, despite the lack of evidence, the Yeti continues to capture the imagination of people worldwide. There are books, movies, everywhere, all over the world, where people can read or can't read. Many people think that the abominable snowman doesn't exist. Yeti
Idiots.
does.
But go on. Yeti. Okay. No,
I do. I have another joke.
Oh God.
What do you call a Yeti gardener?
Yeti gardener. In the snow? I've got nothing. What?
A Harry Potter.
Oh my God. Okay.
Okay.
So I was about 50% on the Yeti up to this point. I'm now dropping it to 33 and a third.
All right, that's fair.
Sure.
I had to put in some bad jokes in there.
You have to. Now, I feel like there is some room in media for some more Yeti contributions. I loved the Yeti, the abominable snowman, in Monsters Inc., of course.
Yes.
But I don't know if too much other Yeti stuff is really coming to mind. Yet at the same time, everybody knows the Yeti. Like, I've never met anybody who didn't know what a Yeti was.
Yeah, there are a couple of kids' books about Yetis or the abominable snowman.
Oh, what's that
rented them
reindeer?
from the library.
Reindeer one. There's a reindeer, and he's got a very, like, a swollen nose.
Rudolph?
I think so. I'm not sure what his name was. But anyway, and there was like a claymation. There was a claymation movie, and
Yes.
reindeer. I don't remember what happened. I think he got kicked in the nose, and he like went on a spiritual journey like through the mountains, and he met Yukon Cornelius and like a Thumper the rabbit or something like that, and then they met an abominable snowman. And that is another piece of Yeti media. I apologize that I don't have better details on this. I know it exists.
You have the best like deadpan face ever, and I know you're messing with me right now.
No,
I know you're
I will
messing with
find
me.
the name of the movie and send it to you. Okay, hold on.
I know what you're talking about. I grew up watching it. I own the DVD set.
Okay, so what was his name? Adolf? Adolf finds Yeti. Finds abominable snowman. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Oh, okay. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, 1964. So in this film, reindeer named Rudolph fights a Yeti. So this, again, that would be interesting because this was about 10 years after the Yeti footprint was found. So the Rudolph animated film from the 60s actually got right on top of this lore.
Okay, that was something that I hadn't even thought of when I was writing this. So I'm glad that you brought this up. If you haven't seen the claymation film, you've had almost 100 years
Yeah.
to do so.
Sorry to spoil it, but in one of the
Sorry to spoil it.
But in one of the final
get with the times.
Battles, Adolf pushes the abominable snowman into a gulch or something like that. And then it comes back at the end of the movie with no teeth. Just like a zombie from The Walking Dead, once you remove all of their teeth, they no longer have like a hunting drive, and it becomes kind of like a good guy.
Yeah, and since he doesn't have teeth, he has to eat snow cones for the rest of his life. God damn it.
Good one.
All right. So, in all seriousness, let's dig into my theory as to why people would come up with such a tale about a big, scary, hairy being in the woods.
Let's.
Let's. And if you don't want to, listen to a different podcast episode.
We just went down to 14 viewers. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Mount Everest is Earth's highest mountain above sea level, located in the Mahalangur Himal subrange of the Himalayas. I'm sorry if I butchered that. I know I probably did. As of May 28th, 2024, over 340 people have died trying to reach or return from the summit of Mount Everest. This makes it the mountain with the most deaths, but it doesn't have the highest death rate. The death rate from climbing Mount Everest in the last 30 years is about 1%, and the percentage of deaths to the successful attempts is around 4%. In fact, many bodies still remain there today because it's too dangerous to collect and bring them down. The exact number of bodies on Mount Everest is unknown, but it's estimated that there are over 200 and between 200 and 300 people. The highest concentration of bodies is between Camp 4 at 26,600 feet and the summit. Some bodies are visible on the mountain, while others are lost. So because I was reading this, I was like, I'm sure that the locals know like how dangerous it is and aren't going to attempt to climb. But like, what better way to keep people from climbing up there and dying than to just make up a story about a monster?
Yeah,
in the
that's true too. That's true too. I think there are a good number of locals who are like semi-professional mountain climbers, at least like taking you like up to the camps. And I hear if you're rich enough, it's actually very easy to climb Mount Everest because you can basically just take like,
You can just
lifts
have a
and
trail
zips
guide or
and
something.
yeah, have a strong person just guiding you all the way up on the easiest path. But I'm shocked and horrified that such a large percentage of the deaths, like there's just over 300 fatalities. What was it, around 340? But about 300 of those bodies are still left on the mountain.
Between 200 and 300, it's estimated, which they don't actually know for sure because some of them could be buried under snow. If there's like an avalanche and you're in your tent, you're probably going to suffocate.
Sure.
It's something that I will never do. I do actually have a family friend who has climbed Mount Everest, though.
Climbed on it or like succeeded in reaching the summit?
Succeeded.
Oh my gosh, whoa.
He has also like taken a rowboat and gone like over the Atlantic Ocean or somewhere. I don't know. This guy's insane. His name is Greg Maud. You can look him up if you want. But I grew up with his family. Well, I'm sorry, his wife's family in my church growing up because my parents had us go to church and stuff. And yeah, so it's super interesting. He has to be like an adrenaline junkie. Like anytime that I hear stories of like, oh, I climbed Everest, blah, 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 I'm like, you are addicted to adrenaline.
You're like,
but that's awesome.
Why, buddy? Why does anyone do anything?
Yeah. To see if you'll die, I guess.
I guess
but
so.
No, super cool though. But if you, I totally see what you're saying though. You're most likely to make it out of somewhere super scary or somewhere difficult if you've got money and you can afford like someone to guide you through. And
for sure. I mean, people, there are just also some superhumans out there. I don't know if you've ever seen that documentary. I think it's called Free Solo, about that guy who just,
I haven't, but I've heard about it.
Yeah, just climbs these mountains, like sheer cliffs, no safety gear or anything. Just a very level-headed lad. And I would almost rather try my luck climbing up like a sheer cliff than climbing Everest, because it's going to be a slow, sad death if you don't make it up the ice. But at least if you fall off the cliff, it's Oh
yeah, right. And then
you land on a trampoline and you are probably okay.
And you bounce back.
Yeah, maybe to the top of the cliff. I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so you're not going to do the mountain climbing.
I will probably never do it on purpose.
Oops, I accidentally climbed a mountain.
Maybe if I'm sleepwalking.
Oh my gosh. What a YouTube thumbnail. I sleepwalked onto the top of Mount Everest?
I accidentally climbed Mount Everest?
Help.
Help? Your face.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
But I'm not going to do that either. If I ever want to skydive, maybe I'll skydive onto the top of the mountain and, just check two things off.
You could also, see if you could become a human snowball as you roll down.
That'd be like really leaning into the cartoon stuff. Man, and you say I'm full of
Yeah,
crap and say ridiculous, stupid garbage. Human snowball. They haven't even perfected human centipedes yet, and you think we're ready for snowballs?
Ethan, I fucking hate that movie. I did happen to find a YouTube video of what people have considered to be an authentic Yeti sighting in Siberia. It was taken by two teen boys who found some tracks and followed them into the woods. The tracks were larger footprints with a similar round shape to that of an elephant and appeared to have only be in one line, which would indicate 2 feet rather than four. The boys had been recording because they were scared, so they were recording on their phones, and they ended up seeing something moving in the woods, and it looked like a tall, like ape-like creature. But when it turned around and saw the boys, it ran off in the other direction. They had a forensic video analyst watch the footage and confirmed that it doesn't appear to have been like manipulated in post-production or anything like that. The boys swear it's not a hoax. Seem to be scared when retelling their story. A couple other experts have looked at it and said like, no, this is a hoax, whatever. I want you to watch part of it though. So I'm going to send you the link, and we'll link this in our show notes too, so that you can watch it if you'd like.
Yeah, I'd love to check it out. And if this is a scene from Randall the Red-Eyed Reindeer, then I'm gonna freak out.
It's not. One thing that I did find interesting though is that the boy who is doing the majority of the interview, he is an orphan who lives with like a random family member. So, like, I don't really know.
Like, care what he has to say.
No. No, I thought it was interesting. Like, I don't know if they could just be coming up with this for the money aspect, I guess, but also where he lives is a very poor place, and I don't know that they would have the means to create something like that,
Oh,
like
sure,
of what the creature looks like.
sure. But
So I thought that was
balancing with that and it being 2012 when it looks like it was recorded, and that being like a golden era of trying to get your town on the map with viral videos.
that's true.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, this is
Okay, so go ahead and skip ahead to about 50 seconds.
sheesh. Those are big footprints.
Very big footprints.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't like how the thing just like is standing still and then just like turns around and dashes away really quick. It's very jerky and troublesome.
I know. And in the original like Bigfoot video that we all know, it walks a very distinct way, and I feel like in that video is very similar.
It was. It kind of like whips around and then like lumbers off.
Yeah.
So
That's a good way of putting it, yeah.
yeah, I'll say, and similar to it, it's got a very strange proportion about it. You know,
Yes.
like you would almost say like primate kind of build to it, long arms, stocky upper body, and some squat legs. This is because it's such a small resolution, like actually like the part that shows the Sasquatch or the Yeti, I guess, that it's zooming in on. It's really no better quality than the famous Bigfoot video. I mean, I know it was recorded
Yeah.
on like a more modern phone, but it was pretty far off.
It was pretty far off, and in the video you'll see that it says that they tried to stabilize it to because I'm sure the kid was like shaking.
Sure.
Like, and they're also cold
Yeah.
because there's snow everywhere. So yeah, I don't know. I thought that was freaky. That's like the most recent footage that is a little compelling, but it's still kind of like it could just be some guy in a suit.
It could be because
But
I mean they also said, oh, it looked like a giant hairy figure, but it didn't have paws. It was more like hands, and then it had a bare face. that could be somebody with, their coat hood drawn up and also not wearing gloves, They could be in a big fuzzy
Sure.
coat.
Yeah.
It could
And
be.
I guess those footprints could have been snowshoes,
They could have,
maybe.
or, it could have been faked.
Somebody with
And,
big feet.
yeah, somebody with just big elephant like feet. And, it could have been one of the kids' friends, Though it looked
very
pretty
well could have
big and they
been.
were pretty
Yeah.
little kids. So I don't know,
Yeah,
maybe one
because
of
they're
them.
like 10,
Yeah.
11,
And
between 10 and 12,
And
I
the
think.
figure running away was clearly not a 10 or 11-year-old boy. It was pretty big.
No.
And they might just
Right.
have like a big older brother or something like that. Who knows? But I will say, like, the kids seemed pretty earnestly upset.
Yeah. Regardless, he saw something that freaked him out. I don't
Sure.
know that it was a Yeti
I don't
or a
know.
Bigfoot
I
for
don't
that matter.
know
But
either. But, more inquisitive minds, even than our own, have thought to stabilize that footage and put it together. So there might just be something to this. I am back up to 50% certain on the existence of the Yeti.
well, good because that's all I have for the Yeti.
Hey,
for
terrific.
this
So
episode.
good job. You managed to get back up to that magic 50% mark. So we've proven scientifically that you cannot disprove the existence of the Yeti, nor can we prove it at this time.
Another mystery of the world.
Yes, not
So,
solved or unsolved.
That was fucking cheesy. All right. So the next cryptid we're going to cover is the Mothman.
The Mothman? What?
Yes.
How
Have you heard of the Mothman?
can you be a moth and a man at the same time?
I guess it's a guy who really loves lamps.
So the Pixar CEO is a Mothman? Thumbnail.
Interesting.
Okay, but go on. No, I've heard
Perfect.
of Mothman Point Pleasant. It's actually not too far away
good.
from
You
here.
don't live under a rock. You were homeschooled, but you don't live under a rock. anymore,
Absolutely.
so
I've got all the brilliance of
great.
Patrick Starr living under a rock. But yeah, no, seriously. Point Pleasant is not that far away from where we live. We've not taken a trip over there. My wife and I have talked about it a couple of times.
I would love to go and see the Mothman statue because apparently whoever made the statue did a really good job on his butt.
Oh,
for some reason.
I hear he's caked up. Absolutely.
I hear that
Big
too.
old hard shining glutes going on. Yeah.
So, and I think it's about, I want to say probably like a 15-hour drive to West Virginia, if not more. I'm going to look it up now
I think-
because you're like not that far from
I
where
don't
we
think
live.
it's that far. It
dude.
also depends on how you drive, I guess.
True. Let's see. Point Pleasant.
And for reference, I also like drive to Florida. So, that's 18 hours. Or I drive to Toronto and that's about
Oh
17.
my God. Yeah, Ethan. It's only 8.5 hours.
Yeah, it's not too bad, huh? We should go. We should go
Wow.
check out the statue.
We should just go.
Why not?
We should just go.
8 hours. It's not like nothing.
Yeah.
You would probably have
Go.
to stay in Point Pleasant. And I hear it's a pretty dangerous city to stay in. Like bridges collapsing, giant moth guys flying around everywhere. Keep your headlights off.
Okay, well, you're getting a little ahead here.
Okay.
So, what is Mothman? So, Mothman is a legendary creature that gained widespread attention in the 1960s in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Described as a humanoid figure with large wings and glowing red eyes, Mothman is often associated with ominous events, particularly the collapse of the Silver Bridge in Point Pleasant on December 15th, 1967, which resulted in the deaths of 46 people. Eyewitness accounts of Mothman describe it as a tall, dark figure with a wingspan of 10 feet or more, capable of flying at high speeds. Some reports also claim that it emits a high-pitched squeal or buzzing sound. Some believe the sightings were actually of out-of-migration sandhill cranes or herons, Regardless, legend has it that mysterious men in black suits began visiting the town shortly after the sightings, the sighting reports, which was kind of creepy.
Sure, always. And I think a lot of Roswell, Mothman, that kind of story includes, the men in black suits showing
Oh,
up, which is why we
absolutely.
had, the whole hit franchise Men in Black. Like you can do a
Yeah.
whole episode just on that. But I didn't realize that Mothman had killed so many people. Like that's one of the highest body counts that I've heard attributed to a cryptid.
Well, it's not 100%. Like nobody knows really what Mothman is. Some think that he is like there to warn people about bad things that are going to happen instead of making bad things happen.
Sure. Well, forgive me if I don't take such a rosy outlook on the criminal mastermind Mothman. No wonder the
Okay.
feds
Yeah.
showed up looking for his sorry sculpted ass.
So while Mothman sightings peaked in the 1960s, sporadic reports continue to emerge from different parts of the world, perpetuating its mystique and ensuring its place in popular folklore. Let's take a look at the area of Point Pleasant where the Mothman was first sighted. The specific area was locally known as the TNT area, so named for the factories that used to produce explosives for use during World War II. After the war, the factories were abandoned and the area grew over, despite the fact that TNT was reportedly still being stored on site and contaminating the local environment. There were reports of possible environmental pollution, and people began speculating that the Mothman, if real, was a result of some of the radioactivity in that area.
Ooh.
The myth may have also benefited from the time period's fascination with aliens and UFOs, which itself was possibly born out of Cold War fears. So those are some things to keep in mind too.
Sure. So I have actually not heard of the contamination theory of Mothman. I know anecdotally sometimes things like that happen and you can get, some of the genes associated with size limiting, get messed up and you end up with some giant
Yeah.
creatures.
No, I watched a documentary called Eight-Legged Freaks, and it covers that.
My freaking gosh, I watched a documentary called freaking Turtle Boys or whatever with the giant
How do
rat,
you
Ninja Turtle
how do you
Boys.
like a taste of your own medicine, Ethan?
Well, the difference is I always tell you things that are freaking true, and you just made up. Okay, I'm Googling if Eight-Legged Freaks is based on a true story, because that's freaky. Oh my gosh. You're full of crap. That ain't based on a true story at all. It's based on spiders, which is real, but like that doesn't make it a documentary.
It's totally not.
Okay.
It's such a bad movie,
Good.
but it's so good.
It's a guilty pleasure film. That's fine. But no,
It is,
no. I
yeah.
mean, most people are familiar with the idea that evil corporation leaches chemicals into the water and a giant monster gets mutated. I think most people have had something like that happen in their hometown, maybe, or it's like it could be a mutated monster. It could be a guy who had a couple too many Four Locos, and that's one way to become a local legend.
He had too
But
many locos and died and started decomposing, and it
they're like,
soiled
he turned
everywhere.
giant and green. And they're like, yeah, it's some bloat, my guy. Mommy, the Hulk is floating in the lake.
Oh my god.
Oh, man. But,
Oh no.
I mean, that withholding, I think stuff like that does kind of happen. So that's a little bit scary.
I think it can. I mean, I did not look into this like for this episode, so I'm not going to have a lot of like dates or facts readily available right now, but there were a lot of wildlife impacted after Chernobyl
Oh, yeah.
happened, and they're like still dealing with it today. I actually have been trying to get through this book that talks about like bomb tests. I've been trying to get through this for like a year and a half, but it's so dry
Sure.
that I am struggling to like get through. So I just do a little bit at a time. But it tracks like weather patterns and how radioactive stuff is carried in rain clouds
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then dropped off in other places. Like that's also a real thing too. But maybe we could do that on a different
I
episode
mean,
because
I'd love for
I'm
us to
fascinated by
move
it.
over
Like, but
and
it's also terrifying.
yeah, we can cover nuclear fallout. I think after a few
Yeah.
cryptid episodes, gnomes, factual, Bigfoot, Loch Ness, Mothman, we are
We're getting
ready.
the nonsense
Yeah,
out of the
we
way.
are ready to get back to death and dismemberment. So I'm so game for it. All right, but
Yeah.
go
All
on.
right. Enough of that. I gotta clear my throat. Sorry.
Ooh, ah, cough, cough. That wasn't
Oh
very
my
good.
God.
Sorry.
No, that was good. There are claims of Mothman sightings in other places in the United States and also internationally, specifically Russia. But sightings in Point Pleasant stopped after a tragedy. In 1967, a year after the initial sighting, the Silver Bridge, a major route in and out of the town, collapsed, killing upwards of 40 people. Afterward, people began to claim that they had seen the Mothman standing on the bridge the day before, possibly as an omen of the disaster to come. Mothman has been allegedly sighted at other disastrous events since the bridge collapse, with people claiming to have seen the creature before earthquakes, tsunamis, and even the 9/11 terrorist attack. This leaves locals and storytellers split on whether Mothman should be considered an evil or benevolent creature. Some say the creature is either bad luck or causing these disasters in some way, but others speculate Mothman may be able to see into the future, and that the monster appears to warn people of impending doom.
I mean, I think that this screwball with its great glutes is out there causing the issues. And I could see how it seemed like it could predict the future when, it also grew up in a dynamite factory and then blew up a bridge. Okay, good to see. Easy to predict a great accident when you're the one out there committing the crime.
I am more like on the Omen side because last week I saw a bumper sticker that said Mothman ate my ass, and now we're doing this episode.
The hell? Okay.
It's true.
Simulation's
I looked it
cracking.
up because I was like, where can I get that? And I looked it up on Amazon, and you can just buy them, and it says Mothman ate my ass, and it's just like a silhouette of Mothman with his wings out.
My gosh. Well, decent graphic. I'm not gonna Google that just because I'm worried I'll just get like a video result.
Oh, yeah. Probably don't.
Get on
Yeah.
it, Brazzers. Sorry, it's the only
Oh,
porn
no,
company I
Ethan.
know. Porn.com? I don't know.
I can't. Ethan. Whew.
So anyway,
All right.
Mothman ate my ass. What a sticker.
Yeah. All right. I did find a news article from 2016 that mentions a recent picture of Mothman, and it's supposedly real.
Uh-oh.
I want to play you the news clip really quick so that you can see it. And I'll share it on the Instagram page or in the show notes. Link it. It's WCHSTV.com. It's a smaller news station.
Oh, this is like the
handles
news.
It's a news. Yeah, it's a
Okay.
news article. So yeah, if you are not already following us on social media, you can find us at NKN Pod, because that was way easier than spelling out niche knowledge and nonsense on all of our handles.
Absolutely. At NKN Pod, look for the glowing blue logo, at least as of the time we're recording this. And yeah, we always post some good accessory visual content to go along with the episode. So if we ever mention anything visual, we're usually gonna link it on there. Bailey does a pretty good job of
Yes.
keeping that up for us.
All right, Ethan, I'm just going to screen share. So can you see this?
I'm so prepared. Oh my gosh, that already looks like a Mothman.
Yes.
Man, what the heck is this?
So the title of the article is Man Photographs Creature That Resembles Legendary Mothman of Point Pleasant. So I'm going to hit play.
Hunters in Mason County may need to be on the lookout for something other than deer when they hit the woods this week. Eyewitness News reporter Fallon Pearson shows us what else may be lurking out there, too.
Up until Sunday night, he hadn't been spotted recently, but according to these pictures, the legendary Point Pleasant Mothman is back. These pictures, supposedly taken by a man who says he was driving along State Highway 2 in Point Pleasant, saw something jump from tree to tree. So he pulled off the road to take these pictures. The man declined an on-camera interview, but is adamant the pictures are real. And some locals like Carolyn Harris believe it.
I definitely know that the Mothman's real.
Harris has owned the Mothman Diner for 48 years. She also helped start the Mothman Festival. Harris said there's been too many sightings of the Mothman for her not to believe.
First responders and the church department and stuff that I talked to, that they definitely made a believer out of me.
Harris has met many Mothman believers over the years, like the Smiths.
You have eyewitnesses, so, you know, yeah, it does have potential, and I do sort of want to believe.
We asked the local Mothman expert and owner of the Mothman Museum, Jeff Wamsley, just how authentic the pictures are. Wamsley said, with modern technology, it's almost impossible to know for sure if the pics are real. But even if they are fakes, the benefits of the Mothman's legend to the town of Point Pleasant are very real.
It's a good thing. Brings a lot of people to the area. It's here to stay. It ain't leaving.
Fallon Pierce.
All right, that's enough of that.
Absolutely. So I will say those photos are pretty intense. It looks like a thin man with like large wings coming out of his arms, or I should say like, you know, feathers in between the span of his arms.
Yeah.
In mid-flight. So, I mean, again, just a silhouette, basically, not super high quality photograph.
Yeah.
And I have some concerns right off the bat, but what do you think?
So to me, it's really dark and you can't make out any details. It could have been somebody just throwing up like a Buzz Lightyear toy in the dark and taking a picture of it, to be honest. Because with the wings and the way that the legs are, like the legs are not straight. They're kind of like bowed a little bit, which I thought was weird.
For sure. And I mean, a bowed leg might actually be a more realistic way to hold your knees in flight versus like, you know, Superman just straight planking like a board. I don't really know. I can't personally fly. But believe it or not, I can't do it all. I think it could also be, if you look back at the image, it could be a bird carrying a snake. Like, and those might not be legs. Like, it could be like a hawk flying like with a little like thing that it caught. Other thing is,
Ethan, you are so right.
And the other thing it could, I want to point out, is a human-sized being could not sustain flight with wings that small. But doesn't it look like it might be like a hawk carrying a snake?
You saying that, I can totally see it. Or, yeah, no, that's absolutely what it looks like. And it looks like it could be like a bigger type of bird, like an eagle or something bigger like that.
Sure.
That if it does, because a snake would make sense if it's like that. If it grabbed it in the middle.
You know, like if you kind of look at it, because eagles do kind of have fuzzier legs, you know, like they got some feathers that trail out behind. So
they do.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I had not considered that. I think that that's actually pretty legit.
I like the idea of just tossing up a Buzz Lightyear, though.
Yeah, I was like, is this like an action figure?
So if I captured this photograph, though, I would also just be posting this everywhere because it is concerning. And when you look at it just at a glance, it looks like a human being with wings kind of mid-flight, like it's diving towards something. And if that was happening like around Point Pleasant and people are conditioned to consider and think about the Mothman and all things every day in life, then I could see going to that first.
Yeah, that would make sense.
So in the course of your research, did you happen to find out whether or not Mothman was real or if this whole thing is just fake?
I could find no definitive proof that Mothman is real.
Damn it.
So
So we're working on it.
you can watch the Mothman prophecies, though, if that's something that you're interested
So have you ever watched that? I have not. I've always thought about it.
I'm 90% sure Richard Gere is in that, so hang on. Yes, Richard Gere. So I have seen it. Yes.
And it wasn't.
Biggest crush on him growing up.
You what?
I did. I had the biggest crush on Richard Gere
Richard
growing up.
That's
Yeah,
such an odd
because
one for a young woman of the 2000s.
Well, okay, but to make it even more weird, we would spend like weeks in the summer at my great grandparents' house, and she just had this giant box of VHS tapes, and I was like 12 or 13, and we would watch movies together. My great grandma and I would. One of them being Fried Green Tomatoes, which is a classic. Freaking love that one. But also Pretty Woman with Richard Gere and Julia Roberts. And I think it's now that I'm an adult, I'm like, I watched a movie about a stripper, like but like prostitute falling in love with my great grandma as a kid.
And your takeaway was, I have the biggest crush on this guy.
Yeah. But I also just love the movie, like the music.
No, it is
the comedy.
a good film, and it's honestly probably not as if it was made today, it probably would not be so sweet. But it is not like that mean spirited of a movie.
It's not as raunchy. There's still some parts where you're like, oh my god, but it wasn't like rated X.
Oh yeah,
you know?
I mean, you were like that.
So-
I was like, "Awooga." I was not actually. I don't think I've seen.
Have you seen Pretty Woman?
Yeah, but I was not a little kid when I watched it. Like stuff like that would not have been allowed in my house.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, because it's same for me. Because my friend Allison and her husband Caden listened to our podcast, and the last time we were talking about movies, he made a comment to Allison like, "Did Bailey watch every movie 2 years ago?" And I was like,
Right.
okay, but like, I grew up in kind of like a religious
Sure.
household. But you and I worked in the movies, and so anytime there would be something playing, we could just go in on our nights off when we didn't work, and we could just watch movies for free. So I watched a lot then, which would have been like
wonderful,
2012 and on.
like a
but-
wonderful show experience. Then you're getting to see all these old movies for the first time in a movie theater with just your friends. Like,
Yeah.
pretty lit.
Yeah.
No, we were similar though. I mean, it was a pretty religious household. Like we couldn't. I loved the movie Hercules, Disney's animated version, but we were not. We couldn't keep it in our house. Weirdly enough, they were fine with us renting it, but they're like, we're not gonna purchase that pagan god stuff and keep it in our house.
Interesting. Okay.
Love it.
And in my opinion,
in my opinion.
oh my god.
Oh.
In my opinion, that makes me want to do it more. Ethan! All right. That's all that I have for the Mothman.
For sure. So you kind of got me in the end with that photo. I'm now 50% sure that Mothman exists, 50% sure Mothman is just a bird or a Buzz Lightyear, but 100% sure that Mothman needs to be stopped. Picking up dynamite from the abandoned dynamite factory and blowing up a bridge. Come on, Bush League.
I don't know about that. I'm more on the Omen side. Or how about this? People who see Mothman are around areas where the earth has been contaminated, and maybe the gases make them see stuff.
It could be. I mean, other thing, I think I'm going to have to go to the diner, throw back a couple of breakfast slams, do some investigation.
And talk to the locals.
Oh,
yeah.
And, get the scoop. I'm going to walk around the corner, see the giant metal statue, and I'll be like, ah! Act scared.
We totally need to plan a trip.
Yeah,
that would
8
be
hours,
so fun.
that's nothing.
No, that's not too bad.
For sure. All right, so 50% sure on Mothman, so that's keeping right in the ratio we like for our cryptids.
That's great to hear, Ethan.
You're welcome.
The last one we're going to cover is the Chupacabra. And in my opinion, this one sucks the most.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Deep cut Chupacabra joke and just start this off.
Or started out with the joke.
I love it. So the Chup, what you got?
All right. So a little background on the Chupacabra. The name translates to goat sucker in Spanish. It's a legendary creature primarily reported in Latin America folklore. It's said to be a cryptid, a creature whose existence has been suggested but is not recognized by scientific consensus, as we all know. Descriptions of the Chupacabra vary, but common characteristics include a reptilian or alien-like appearance with large eyes, sharp fangs, and spikes or quills running down its back. It's often depicted as bipedal, standing on two legs, although some reports describe it as quadrupedal. In my research, I found that there were even toys of the Chupacabra, and I have to show you this.
Yeah, lay it on me.
Because this is not at all what I was expecting.
Let's see this little goat sucker.
Let El Chupacabra. El
Chupacabra.
Chupacabra.
I like that. Okay.
White people, am I right?
Take it.
All right, I
take
just
it
sent you
to
the link to
TikTok.
this eBay listing of this thing that I found. It is an action figure of the Chupacabra, and I'm not sure that it really falls in line with anything, but I thought it was hilarious because it's kind of giving BDSM WrestleMania.
I like. Okay, this is stylized as Chupa and then a different font. Cabra.
Cabra.
Oh my gosh, this looks more like Mothman. What is this? This is like a lizard creature from the deep. It's
Dude, I don't know.
So-
I found it somehow, and it's like an action figure.
a Chupa Cabras.
Apparently super rare, and there's a listing on eBay for $499.
This seller has 99.6% positive out of 4,686 sales. Okay, this looks way older than 1997, but this is a weird take on it. Definitely a biped because it is muscular like a WWE action figure. It's wearing a loincloth with a, let's just say, a substantial bulge. And it is bleeding out of its eyes, nose, and mouth. So this is pretty scary. What was the market for this action figure? I would not want my child to have this.
I have no idea.
$500.
I don't know. But this made me think of the time that you and I found a trash pile, and then I took you there like the next.
Oh, on the
like it was like a couple hours
Yeah.
after, and we ended up finding those little action figures or something.
in the one of the dressers. It was like one of the towns that near where we grew up had it was a yard sale day where everybody would put all their stuff out on the street, and people would spend the whole day going through it, taking stuff they wanted, and at the end of the day the city would come through and pick anything that wasn't taken and throw it away.
Yeah.
And Bailey asked me if I wanted to go check out this stuff, and I said, yeah, I guess so. Who doesn't want to rifle through people's things? And inside of an old dresser, we pulled it open, and there were just like literally, I think I took like 6 of them, but there were dozens of these old Marvel action figures still in their packaging from like the 70s.
The original package. Yeah.
Which I had no idea anything like that was worth the money. I took 6 of this doll called Isis because it was in the middle of that big like terror scuffle, and I just thought it would be funny. I was like, I'm going to make a video of like like these ISIS action figures or something and be like, what the heck? They're selling ISIS action figures. And then I Googled
Poor
it,
timing.
and they were worth like $400 each or something like that.
Yeah.
And we should have gone. It was too late, but like there were so many.
It was crazy too because like maybe a month later, you came up to the theater when I was working, and you handed me a card And I'm like, what the heck? So I opened the envelope, took the card out, and there were like two or three $100 bills. And you're like, I wanted to split this with you. And I was like, dude, what? And then you told me that like those were actually worth something. You sold them on eBay. And I was like, I'm not taking this money. And you're like, you're the one who showed me the trash pile. I eventually did take the money. I mean, come on. But yeah, I mean, honestly, that speaks to your character though, Ethan. You're a very nice person.
I mean,
so,
again,
thanks for that.
you found the pile of them. I just like regret I only took the funny ones because they had like Thor figurines, which I'm sure were probably worth more than the ISIS one.
Dang.
And like, I mean, they had the specific Thor one it was like ginger, and I think that ended up being worth more money because it's just funny to see Thor as a ginger.
Like a rare.
But we did not grab those. Still super funny.
No, we did not.
When you're just like, some punk kid scraping by, and then you find, a few $100 worth of
Yeah, we were
action
like,
figures.
what, 18?
Yeah.
18, 19?
It probably was, around there.
Yeah.
Super funny. It does
All
remind
right.
me of that. This is pretty wild. If it was not $500, I might try to get one.
You just place a bid for $20.
Take it or leave it. I could
Yep.
finance it $99 a month for 6 months.
Oh my God. No, that is not that important. No. Anyway.
I love that though. That's awesome.
If you want to look up pictures of the Chupacabra, you can do so on your own time, but I will definitely be sharing pictures of this weird looking old action figure that I happened to find. I don't even know how I found it. So, the Chupacabra gained widespread attention in the mid-1990s when reports of livestock killings, particularly of goats and other small animals, surfaced in Puerto Rico, Mexico, and later in other parts of the Americas. The animals were often found with puncture wounds to their necks and drained of blood, leading to speculation that the Chupacabra was responsible for these attacks. Numerous theories have been proposed to explain the Chupacabra phenomenon, ranging from natural predators like coyotes or wild dogs to urban legends and mass hysteria. Some skeptics suggest that the reported Chupacabra sightings are actually cases of misidentified animals suffering from mange, which is a skin condition caused by parasitic mites.
Right. And I have heard that theory quite a bit. Also, I feel like in a lot of, all the way from like Mexico all the way down through like Guatemala and stuff, wild dogs do tend to be a more popular occurrence than, and I mean, obviously in the desert, you do have little, like, I don't know, dingoes, or is that what they're called? Coyotes?
I think dingoes are in Australia.
Yeah, that's probably it.
Yeah.
So yeah, probably
the
some
dingo ate my baby, which turned out that it actually did eat their babies.
Wait,
I don't know if you know about the story.
what?
Yeah, so I believe it was in Australia. Hang on.
Okay, I don't like this. I was trying to get around to coyotes or coyotes are an issue down there, but I didn't know the dingoes were eating people's babies.
A dingo ate my baby is a cry popularly attributed to Lindy Chamberlain Creighton as part of the 1980 death of Azaria Chamberlain case in Australia. So they were camping and claimed that their 9-week-old baby was taken from their tent. And the police were like, that's a little sus. And they ended up charging and convicting them for the death of their daughter. But they never found the body, I believe. But there have been a lot of reporters and like documentaries done on this case, and they did end up finding baby clothes similar to the colors of what the baby had been wearing in a dingo den, not too far from where their tent site was.
Oh, that's very
their campsite.
sad.
And I feel like that was like a recent development, like within the last couple of years. Anyway, super sad story, and I can't imagine like something horrible happening to my kid,
Then you're
and
thrown
then
in prison.
me being accused of it and then somehow found guilty by a jury without any actual evidence.
Sure.
So,
But that aside,
Yeah.
though, I'm familiar with the concept of, like, mangy looking dogs kind of, running around, or coyotes, or a fox, anything like that. If its fur starts falling out. And even when you see, like, the I found a puppy on the side of the road videos, sometimes they have very, very little fur, and it kind of looks a little spiky, because it's matted, which could explain some of
Yeah.
the visuals of Chupacabra. I feel
Yeah.
like every time I say Chupacabra, I roll the R's harder, and now I'm like saying, like, Chupacabra. Sound like Puss in Boots. Chupacabra.
Actually, you do. Despite the skepticism, the legend of the Chupacabra persists, with occasional reports of sightings and alleged attacks on livestock continuing to fuel its mythology. It has become a prominent figure in popular culture, further cementing its status in a modern-day myth. In looking for news reports, I did find an ABC article which states, quote, "The photo of this animal was taken on Richmond near Highway 6 behind the Shell facility, according to the viewer who spotted it. While it's most likely a dog suffering from mange, or potentially a coyote, it would certainly seem to resemble the mythical blood-sucking creature." End quote. So I've got a picture to show you.
Okay. Let's
I'll
check
pull
it
it up.
out.
So it's this right here. I don't know if you
What
can
the
see it there.
heck?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a freaky looking little creature. Ah,
It is. It definitely looks like a dog.
It does
though.
look like a dog, like maybe like a kind of like a little bit of like a snouty kind of snout hound kind of looking, sniff hound looking snout dog sort of thing. No fur, or very patchy fur. But it almost looks a little chunky, and I feel like usually diseased dogs get kind of scrawny and like bony. This thing looks very comfortable not having any fur.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not gonna say it's a chupacabra. I definitely think that
I think it's like a diseased dog is what it looks like. But what is a chupacabra if not a diseased dog? Maybe that's just an
Yeah.
answer.
true.
Oh, I don't like that.
That's
That was
it.
kind of creepy.
I know it is creepy looking because it just looks like a hairless cat.
Sure.
But a dog.
Which I've always wanted one of those, by the way. If you just look up hairless dogs, basically all the results look exactly like that image.
Oh.
So I don't have
Yeah.
any issue believing that
It
that
does look like
photograph
that. It
is.
looks like a hairless.
It just
dog.
looks like a hairless dog, which admittedly is a little bit creepy. But they're also kind of cute. In this image of the chupacabra, if I saw that, I wouldn't be too scared of it. I think it was kind of cute. Probably wouldn't approach it, but
The dog that looks like is actually a Mexican hairless dog. It's a very long name. I'm not going to try to pronounce, but it's called Zolo, short, but it's spelled XOLOITZCUINTLI. I don't even know how to pronounce that.
Ooh.
But it says it's a hairless Mexican dog. That's literally what that picture looks like.
Okay. Real quickly, I'm going to try to figure out how to pronounce this. Oh, it doesn't even have the Google pronunciation assistant. Oh, man,
my
we're
gosh.
screwed. But we spelled it at least, so we're good. And that is exactly
Yeah.
what this thing looks like. And it is, I guess,
Yeah.
a Mexican dog breed. So, So we solved the Chupacabra. You heard it right here on Niche Knowledge and Nonsense.
Yep. I do have a Reddit story of a Chupacabra. And I just realized what their username is.
Okay. Also, I just looked it up. It's pronounced Sholowet Squintly.
Shut up. What?
Yeah. You think I'm sure I just butchered that. But let me
I'm not even gonna attempt it. 'Cause
I just
I know
sent
I'm
you
gonna
my
mess it
my
up.
search so you can you can click to see the pronunciation.
Yeah, Sholo at Squintly. That's how it says that.
Yeah, I don't
I'm gonna hit the slow. Sholo at Squintly. Okay, I did it with her.
if if you know how to pronounce that, please write in nicheknowledgeandnonsense@gmail.com and
Yeah.
let us know. I mean, after I tried to pronounce those Dutch names on the Gnomes episode, I don't think it can get much worse. So, Sholont Squintly, we're going with that.
All right. So I did have a Reddit story, but I decided not to go with it because the username was wrongdsnuts69. So I have another one here. I have another one here. I found this in r/paranormal. It's from 10 years ago. Wow, it's kind of weird to think about where you were 10 years ago, huh?
I think I was digging for action figures out of a pile of garbage.
Yeah. The username is gentleman_bastard. So it's a little bit better, but you know.
Marginally.
Yes. So it goes like this. I'd like to start the story by providing the bona fides of the man who shared the experience with me. He's a chief warrant officer with 30 years in the Navy and a hunter since he was 12. He's seen the world, been in combat, and spent more time in the woods than I've been alive. What I'm trying to say is he's a salty motherfucker who doesn't scare easily. Anyway, I met Bill through my father, who is also in the Navy, and got to talking about how I go hunting wild pigs on my uncle's dairy farm just south of Jacksonville, Florida. We generally go out in pairs at night, one person manning a 2 million candlelight spotlight and the other man the shooter. We roam the cornfields until we hear animals rustling around, hit the spotlight, bang, 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 rinse, repeat. So one relatively cold January night, we get a group together for some good old hog shooting. I guess we could put a little warning before this story. Animal lovers. Bill and I go to a field where we saw some fresh tracks earlier in the day and camp out. There was no moon out and a bit cloudy, so it was dark, as dark as you can get in Florida. Perfect conditions to see some pigs. Sure enough, we hear rustling and grunting, and Bill hits the spotlight, revealing 5 decent-sized pigs. I raised my gun. I shot the lead pig. I'm not going to go into that next part.
The pig was okay.
Yeah, we've seen Bambi. But we saw the pig. We walked towards it. As soon as we take a step, we hear a scream from behind us. A long, ragged, angry scream. It was so loud, and I knew it was close. I froze and looked at Bill, and he's looking back at me with the same look of confusion and fear. I asked him, "What the fuck was that?" He replies, "Fuck." He shines the light behind us, slowly scanning the open field and the trees beyond, and we see nothing. He starts to say something when we hear the scream again. This time, it was closer, and it was longer. If you want to know what it sounded like, next time you go to a football game or a concert, you might scream and holler and wind up losing your voice. When you wake up feeling hoarse and raspy, scream as loud as you can for 5 seconds. That's what it sounded like. Bill immediately said, "Give me your pistol, we need to get out of here." I handed him my gun. "What about the pig?" He said, "Fuck the pig." Now we are about a mile away from the car, and a 1,000-acre dairy farm with some kind of demon bitching at us at 2 a.m. in the pitch black, and we start to panic. What begins as a brisk walk away, carefully scanning in the 360, turns into a steady shuffle, into a light jog, and then into a full sprint. I don't remember if there were any more screams, but my adrenaline was turned up to an 11, and my focus was on 2 steps ahead of me and not getting left behind. We make it back to the truck without incident and hightail back to my uncle's house. On the ride home, we have a calm discussion about what happened. The fucking fuck was that? I don't fucking know. No fucking way. That was a hog. It sure as fuck wasn't. To cap it all off, we get back to my uncle's house, and the other guys had heard the shots and were waiting for an update, standing around a bonfire. To credit Bill, played it off cool as I had a death grip on my beer. My eyes were bulging, and I was seeing things in every shadow. Yeah, we left the pig out there. We'll get it in the morning. We heard a funny noise. Sounded pretty funny. Oh, did ya? Raccoons can make some pretty interesting ones. Yeah, they never encountered it again. But he claims that it is the Chupacabra.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so what do you think about the story?
That was pretty horrifying and completely sensical to me. Some colorful language. It sounds like maybe they were really scared. Also, that's 100% how I would react if I was scared of something I saw in the woods. Be like, heard something creepy. It was pretty funny. And then everyone's like, yeah, that is pretty funny, I guess.
I feel like that's pretty typical, and I could be wrong, but for men, like, they don't want to be like, oh my God, we were so scared. We ran out there. We were so scared. We don't know what that was. Because, like, oh my God, how dare you show, like, any amount of emotional response to anything.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that.
Like, I would have been like, what? We fucking heard something and we got out of there.
And then I'd say, yeah, it's pretty funny.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. Okay, yeah, funny enough.
Honestly, we're laughing
you were
about
terrified.
it now.
Yeah.
Anybody have some extra pants?
Yeah. You had to change your pants, right, Ethan?
Yeah, exactly. Because I soiled myself because of how scared I was. So anyway,
man.
no, I don't know. Also, I've known a lot of people who, when you're like out hunting or out exploring the woods in the dark or whatever, when you see anything, your mind kind of fills in the gap to perceive like a danger or confusion or something to get you to, roll towards safety. I don't know the like medical term for it, but there's a sort of like neurological occurrence where, like, in low light, if you see like a jacket or something hanging on a coat rack with a hat on top of it, you perceive it as like a person, and your brain like fills in the details of a face and everything like that. And it's a pretty common occurrence. Like, if, I'm saying that, a lot of people will have said, I experienced that. Like, you turn, you see something out of the corner of your eye, and not only do you think, oh, I thought that was a man in the corner, like, your brain filled in the extra details so that you could make a snap judgment for your own safety. And that's not unusual.
Right.
So in the woods at night, scary, maybe you see a raccoon or a warthog or something like that, and you think it's something else. Who knows?
Yeah. I do think it's interesting, though, like, if that's something that you've done for a long time, and I mean, I would assume that you're going to be familiar with noises of animals out there. Like, if you go camping a lot, you'd be familiar.
That's true too. If you're an
that.
avid hunter, you probably wouldn't be a very good hunter if you get scared of the sound of a raccoon or a pig.
Right. So that was interesting.
It is. Now, have you heard about the whole like Texas wild hog thing?
I have not.
So,
what's that?
I mean, there's a huge population boom of wild hogs in Texas, where it's just going wild. Like, there's now, I think, in the neighborhood of like 3 million hogs, and they get into giant herds, and they'll just like charge stuff or run into towns, and it's gotten so bad to the point, like, for one, a pig can reproduce when it's like 6 months old. So, and they can have 3 batches of piglets, like 3 litters of 5 or 6 piglets per year. And then all of those can reproduce when they're 6 months old. So it gets out of control. It's to the point where, again, sounds fake, but they'll like go up in choppers with machine guns and just start like unloading clips into the herds of pigs because they're so overpopulated, and they're destructive. They'll eat anything. And the worry is, if they decimate crops and they get hungry enough, do they run into town and start eating people? Because pigs do that quite happily.
They do that if you're dead. They will not eat you if you're alive either.
Well,
but they do eat bones and everything.
I mean, if you have like a heart attack and collapse like by a pig pen or something, and you're not like dead yet, they'll eat. They won't wait till you're dead. They'll start eating. They'll start eating you. And if they get hungry enough, they get aggressive. You know, they eat their own piglets, and they don't think a thing of it.
I didn't know
Yeah, if they get
that.
hungry enough. So the concern is if they know they're outnumbering the people, and they get hungry enough, and there's nothing else to eat, and there's some juicy people walking around.
I don't think that they're gonna be whatever. I mean, that's a bit far, but I mean, I know that they can be destructive. So Adam's parents had pigs, and sometimes there were a couple times where they had gotten like broken through the fence, and it was an electric fence, and just like were making ruts in the property of the person next to them, and they were super upset about it because they're really deep.
Sure.
But there's also one morning, this is hilarious. We had gone down to Adam's parents' house and stayed there, and one of the pigs got out. And she decided to use Adam's car as a back scratch. And was just rubbing her back and all like her sides up against his front bumper. And if you've never touched a pig, they have very
Bristly.
wire bristly hair, and it scratched almost all of the like finish. So like his car is black, so it didn't take the paint off. It took the finish off. So it was matte black in the spots. So he just like he's like outside yelling at this pig like, "Get off my car." And it's like not doing anything.
Doesn't care.
So he just had to get a stick, and he wasn't like beating it, but he's just like hitting it to like kind of like prodding it or like getting it to move away. And I'm like standing upstairs watching from the window, and I'm like crying from laughing so hard.
Oh no.
Oh my god, it was so funny.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That is funny, but it's also dangerous, because I also have got to let you know that just a couple years ago, 59-year-old woman in Texas was actually murdered by the pig herd in a driveway. The herd just rolled in, took her out. Now, is that representative of all the 3 million pigs and one murder? Is not exactly saying that they're rolling in and like eating everybody, but it is happening out there. But also people get like scratched by cats and get sick, or get, like, I don't know, staph and die all the time. So it's not like one pig attack is a horrifying thing. Obviously horrifying for the victim and her family, but it's probably a fluke accident.
Yeah. It does say in the article, this is a very rare incident. From just what little research we have found, there's less than 6 of these that have been reported in the nation. So
that's like lower than,
and that's a
like
sheriff
alligators, even. So
actually, yeah. Damn.
I don't know.
That to me would almost be like somebody like put a hex on you, and you're gonna die in the worst
all
way
things, you're
possible.
just leaving
Like,
work
what?
and you get nerfed by the pigs. Like, I don't know what to think. But anyway, so talk about it scratching on the car. Hair's breadth from death out there trying to confront the pig. That was a close one.
Hilarious.
Go
Anyway,
on.
that's all that I have on the Chupacabra.
For sure.
It was just
So,
that.
I am 100% on the Chupacabra. Actually, versus the other things I'm 50% on. I just think we need to reclassify that as a word to describe like a, manged dog or a rabid dog or something like that, or a hairless wild coyote. I think things that are happening are matching what that description is, and I'd say we've just solved what the Chupacabra is.
Have we solved it though? Because what about like all of the blood sucking and stuff? Because I don't think a dog's gonna be doing that.
Oh, yeah.
But that specific image, we could have solved it.
For sure. And I mean, the goat sucking, like, I get that. But also, I mean, they find cows dead in the fields with, like, their uterus surgically removed, like, stuff like that.
That could
happens.
be
You know,
aliens.
it could be aliens. I wouldn't necessarily, just because a chupacabra is in the area doesn't mean like it's the thing sucking out the goats. I don't see a video of a chupacabra latching onto a goat and just sucking it. Like it could be, a false attribution.
That is
Okay, I'll
interesting.
give you
do think, though-
80% on the
yeah.
chupacabra. So
Okay.
that's why Chupacabra wins Niche Knowledge and Nonsense's #1 most believable cryptid.
Maybe for you.
Okay, so out of our network of 5 cryptids, again, not counting gnomes, those are confirmed at this point, basically. Out of the 5 cryptids, what are you giving the most believable cryptid trophy to?
I wrote this whole episode and I didn't even think about that. I'm going to say Bigfoot.
Bigfoot? And what percent sure are you that there's a Bigfoot?
40%.
I know my 50% jokes aside, I feel like a few of these have such like broad bodies of evidence that I'm at the point where I believe there's something. I think some people will just say anything, like I saw aliens, I think I usually try to err, just like with hauntings, on the side of like, I believe you saw something or that you experienced something. I don't know that it's a ghost. But like, I don't believe that you're just out like telling, lies for attention. I believe you had an experience. And that's where I'm at with Bigfoot. There are a lot of, people who latch onto that story and they're a little bit dramatic, but there are also plenty of people who don't have a history of dramatization and they firmly believe that they had an experience. So I don't know if it's Bigfoot, like, a 12-foot extant ape like we would think about it. But I believe that people are out there having a shared experience, seeing something.
Yeah, I believe that too, and I'm not going to discredit somebody either. The way that my brain works, though, is just trying to make sense of what I'm seeing or how to understand someone else in that way, and just kind of like problem solve, like, oh, could it have been this? But that's just how my brain works.
Sure.
Instead of just taking something at face value, I'm going to try to think about it and figure it out.
Definitely. And like, I like to, like, if people told me like I saw Bigfoot, my first thing would be to say like, what? Tell me more. Like, what did you see? And I go like,
Right.
like listen all the way through. And then once it had calmed a little bit, I might say like, do you know if there are like bears in that area? Like, if there are like bears or a moose or any other like large woolly mammals, and, kind of, try to find like the polite way to
there.
insert I think it could have been something
Yeah.
else. Do you know if there are other things there? But,
Instead of like are you sure about
yeah,
that?
you sure about that? Oh, heavens.
You sure about that?
Sure that's what it was? No, like I don't want to like,
I'm thinking.
I wouldn't want to, even if it
That's
was
some
Bigfoot, like I
turbulence.
wouldn't want to just, there are definitely people who would just say, no, that's bull crap. You didn't see jack squat.
Yeah. And I would never say anything like that to anybody.
Yeah,
You know.
unless like I knew what I think, what it was they saw. Like, I saw the same thing.
Yeah.
I walked over to it. It was a cardboard cutout. It's
Yeah.
whatever. I'd still probably, I don't know. I also don't think there's anything wrong with letting people have their little dreams and their fantasies. And if they have a lot of
Yeah.
joy from believing they saw Bigfoot, then that's okay for me. But that Mothman is a menace, and I will not accept that one. If people think they saw it, then they should call the authorities.
I don't think he's a menace. I think he's more of an omen.
Okay.
You can't spell Mothman without omen, Ethan.
That's technically true, I guess.
With the
Well,
letters.
screw my...
The letters of
I
O-M-E-N.
reversed my opinion. I hadn't thought about it like that. Phonetically, I guess it makes sense.
I actually just
Phonetically,
thought of that, so I kind of do
trademark it. Oh, Mothman Omen. Can't spell Mothman without Omen. Is an episode name.
Omen. It's almost like people who are like, you can't spell Pride Month without demon or something like that. Have you seen those?
No, I have to try to spell it in my head now.
Which it is June 3rd. We're recording this episode. It's going to come out a little bit later.
For sure. But I mean, it's
That's why I was
even if
thinking
it's
about that.
rolling
Happy
at the
Pride
end
Month.
of June. Happy Pride Month, everybody. I want to thank you for putting this series together. I feel much more informed to comment on the validity of the top 5 most believable cryptids, including our number 1 most believable cryptid of niche knowledge and nonsense analysis, Bigfoot. Of course, again, not including gnomes. But you can listen to us anywhere you stream. We're on Spotify. We are on YouTube. We're on your old... find an old dusty cassette. Why don't you blow the dust off of some of that film? You plug it in. You might just hear our voices. You can find us online at NKNPod on Instagram. Send us an email at nicheknowledgeandnonsense@gmail.com. And Bailey, you got anything else?
Yeah, thanks for listening again to part 2 of this episode. We've got a lot more episodes to listen to. You can binge, catch up if you haven't listened to them. I want to cover spontaneous human combustion.
Oh,
we have a bunch of cool other topics we want to do. And I do also want to give a shout out to Eric Safaro for letting us use his song as our intro outro.
Yes.
It's called Cherry Crush. He's also doing some cool stuff. So he just played a show, and he's going to be doing some more stuff in the future.
Yeah,
so,
terrific. Definitely look up
stuff
Safaro. It's just Sferro anywhere you're streaming music.
Yeah. So that's all I've got.
All right. We're good to go. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks.